It's a cube, it's a cube, it's a default cube.
So yeah, we made the system where the cube dodges the spheres. You know, we did do that. But you imagine these are asteroids, this is a ship, and you're like, wow, we made the logic of a game in geometry nodes, which is cool, you know? But, lots of butts all over the floor. But it looks like fucking garbage, okay? So I think the next order of business is let's take these spheres and make them like randomly generated asteroids where some are rotating one way and some another. I don't know if that's accurate, but I feel like since asteroids are all these independent rocks, maybe they do all have their own like orbital rotation that's different from another. Either way, let's make asteroids. So instead of just having this like sphere that we instance, you know, let's make a thing. So asteroids. That's what this tutorial is about. Beautiful. So forget everything we did here. We're going to focus on making an asteroid, and then we're going to port these nodes over. So we have a sphere. And by the way, I also have another story to tell from the road, and we'll get to that. So to make an asteroid, I'm thinking in general, without getting to, and there is like an asteroid add-on. There's a fucking rock generator thing that actually has an asteroid parameter. But what is an asteroid? It's a sphere that you distort until it looks like a rock. So that's what we're going to do. So as we do that, I was going to a Subway because it was the morning. Every first hour when I wake up on this like walk, again, I walked 100 miles to a beach and everybody's like, we don't care, but whatever. Every morning I'd go get breakfast. So I was going to a Subway because I'm like, okay, there's a Subway. There's not going to be food for the next 2 hours on this highway, effectively. It wasn't an interstate. You die at an interstate. But I go into the Subway, and it's empty. There's nobody there. All the ingredients are gone. So I'm like, oh, it must not be open. So I exit the door. And the moment I do, what I assume is the manager, I like to call her... well, what do I say that's not offensive? I like to call her the goblin. She comes over and she's like, can you not read? I'm like, what? And she points at the door and it says like, I don't know, opens at 10 a.m. or something like that. And she's like, can you not read? In a very aggressive voice. And I'm like, it was more like I just didn't see it. And then I walked away and just felt bad about it for the rest of the day. Just fucking goblin. She could have just said it's not open. I'm like, why is the door unlocked then, you dumbass manager? So that was something I had to fight my demons with. So we have a sphere. Let's make an asteroid. We're going to take all these points and we're going to set the position just like last time. How are we going to set the position? By modifying them. So if we just use the position, nothing changes. But I'm thinking we want to move these points kind of like randomly relative to the normal. So I'm thinking to do that, we just use a noise texture. Maybe we don't even need this. We use a noise texture. If we put this in here, it just kind of gives us randomness. So let's use normal. Does this even make sense, what I'm doing? No, it doesn't. So, okay. It seems like I forgot how to make an asteroid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the position, and we want it to go outwards relative to the normal. So maybe what we could do is, I don't think we even need this. What we can do is we can scale this. So let's take vector math. All this Subway stories got me flustered. We scale it. And yeah, there we go. Because it's a sphere, the position is the normal. We can scale it relative to a random number. Yeah, there we go. That's an asteroid. And we just change the quality of this until it's kind of like a low scale. And that's a rock. Let's take the divisions and bring them up until we have something that's a bit more detailed. By the way, doing shade smooth is still not, I know it's possible in fields, but it hasn't been streamlined like it was in attributes. But what's happening here is where we're taking a sphere, we're taking its position, which is the normal, and we're saying move it outwards or inwards relative to a scale of this random source of detail. And we can make it more detailed until it looks more like an asteroid. And even though this kind of looks faceted and we don't have this whole shade smooth thing, I don't think it's going to matter because we're going to kind of degrade the footage anyways. So you could either bring up the divisions here or, you know, live with it. I'm going to live with it. So we have a random rock. That's how we make an asteroid. Yes, you can make craters and all this, but I'm not gonna. So, okay, we have an asteroid. Shift P to frame that. Put it on the wall. Mom will be proud. So all we need to do now is replace the spheres we made before. So again, we have this generator. Where is it? There we go. we replace the sphere with an asteroid. So in theory, let's see if it works. We just replace it like that. And there we go. We have asteroids. And now we just got to make them look random. So let's also talk about randomness. How do we do randomness? Well, the scale is one thing we want. Some of them to be big, some of them to be small, whatever. So for that, unlike before where I'm like, oh, we need randomness, but we actually need a noise texture since we need a continuum. For this is an example where we can just generate with this random value node a random number or a random vector for each of these indexes, and I don't care about the continuum. So I'm going to generate a random vector because scale has x, y, z, and I don't want these to be scaled uniformly. Like if I was to do a float, it would look good, right? We connect this, and now we have some randomization, but they're all like kind of the same shape, just different sizes. So I'm thinking, let's make it a vector. So some of them could be thin, some of them could be long, as you can see. And we randomize it in a way where we don't make it too thin. So at a minimum, 0.5 or something like that. So we don't get super thin asteroids. And then on top of that, we can add a second layer of randomness by doing like vector math scale. There we go. And this is the one that's going to control the uniform scale. For this one, we use another random value, float. So I think what I ended up doing is after that Dunkin Donuts, spoiler, after that Subway, I just found a Dunkin Donuts. And what you have to do there is when you go further and further north, the lobby's always closed because they're like, nobody's going to go to the side of the highway to go inside a Dunkin Donuts. Everybody's doing drive-thru. So what you have to do is awkwardly stand in line in the drive-thru, and when you get to the speaker, they don't detect you because it only detects cars. There might be a pressure plate down there, so you have to ask a car behind you nicely to drive up so they sense you, and then you make your order. It's very awkward, but it's funny, the whole thing. So for this random value, same thing as before. We don't want any of them to be too small. And now, maybe this one could use a bit of a boost. So now we have asteroids that are not only different shapes, but different overall uniform scales. And that's the source of randomness. It should still be able to dodge these. We want to make sure none of them are too big. It seems like they are a bit too big, where there's a bit of clipping. So you could just take care of it like that. And we could change these later. But that's one source of randomness. Another that's actually going to kind of make this thing is we want this thing to be rotating, right? So we could rotate these all together. But just like with everything else, we don't want them all to be rotating the same direction. That thing I was talking about before, do all asteroids rotate in a different thing, or do they all orbit together? I don't know. We're going to do it in a way where they're all different. So for this, we want to randomize that as well. So just like before, we use a random vector. So this one can go from like 0 to 1. This could be our rotation, so they're all facing different ways, which will also make the asteroids look different. But what I'm thinking is we want them to actually be, so right now, they're all facing different directions, but they're kind of stationary. We want them to keep orbiting. And just like everything else, I'm going to use that, the cheat. Wow, my throat. We're going to use the cheat of just using scale. So we're going to take this vector and scale it. And you can see this is going to rotate each one on its own like axis, depending on this random thing. So let's animate it. So hash frame, or you know what? So we could do like hash frame divided by 30, which will work. Each of these is orbiting. But another source of randomness is what if one orbits faster than another? So they're going in different directions, but also spinning. Not orbiting, spinning at different speeds. That'd be cool. So let's do that. So I'm going to outsource, like is happening to all rotoscoping and green screening work. I'm gonna outsource this hash frame over to its own node. We divide it by 30, set it to division. But this time, I'm going to multiply this or scale it in a float sense. I'm going to scale it by a random number. We could just kind of reuse this one. That should be fine. So some are going to spin at a scaling of 0.4, some 0.78, and some somewhere in between. So yeah, it feels like some of them are spinning a bit faster. I think what I could do... Whoa, where am I? What I could do is I can also add an additional scaling so that overall, so you can see this is a lot, overall they spin a bit faster, maybe twice as fast. And yeah, okay, so we have asteroids. It's the same logic as before, but this time they're different sizes and they're spinning. And I do see a tiny bit of clipping, but I think, I don't know yet. We'll have to like play around with it, but I think we can either, in general, make the asteroid smaller, which we know how to do, or maybe the ship is going to be smaller than this cube. I don't know. In fact, for now, let's actually set up a camera so we can view this thing from top view without doing it weirdly. So I'm going to take the camera, put it here, put it above, and we need it to, the bottom of it should be on the x-axis, and then the top of it should be where it kind of clips out. So we got to get close, but not too close. So yeah, the cube comes out here. Let's go to a frame where it's doing that. So I'm going to move it a bit closer so that the edge of it is closer to the edge of the frame. So when it goes out, it comes back here. And that's beautiful, isn't it? So one quick thing I want to do to avoid some of this clipping is we could take the detail and bring it down. That might help a little. Take this, copy it over. So I was seeing some clipping when I got to this part. Whatever. We can always change the seed value. Okay, let's actually try that. Different seed value. Yeah, there we go. There we go. It's dodging those asteroids. And it's looking more like a game as well. You know, we look at this from rendered view. We take away some of this light of the environment. And maybe let's also do one of these. And it's looking legit, you know. The nice thing about asteroids and space renders is you just kind of put a single light source and that should look correct since there should be very intense shadows. Oh, also one other thing. I keep forgetting. The camera should be more to the side so that the ship, it's kind of like a side scroller. So the ship's down here. This will make it feel more game-like, just this framing. And it will feel like, oh, you're here and asteroids are coming towards you and you have a limited amount of time to decide. Yeah, buddy. Okay, so they look like asteroids. I think that's a job well done.